Well, in this video, I'll try to explain why Brazil is so unequal. We have a large difference between rich and poor. Okay, I'm native, lived here over the last 35 years, and I really know deep the Brazil's problem, why they happen, how they develop. Okay, so let's start. In Brazil, we have some problems caused by the government that affects even more the poor than the rich. In Brazil, we have this cancer of the populism, of the leftism, for over 100 years. Okay, it's not a recent thing like developed countries, USA, Europe, Canada. It's very old here. The leftism is very old, and the populism is the major problem in Brazil. Populism is when people demand the government to do things, and even every time there is a demand for government to do something, government tax in the majority of times the poor. So this dynamics in Brazil occurs in many ways. Let me give an example. We have a brutal labor rules here that prevents big companies to hire people. If we have a lot of unemployed people, wages tends to be low. Okay. If when we have when it's easy to hire, like we see in developed countries like USA, Canada, Europe, when it's easy to hire, we have a scarcity of jobs. No, we have a scarcity of labor force, so the wages tend to be higher. In Brazil, we have scarcity of jobs because of these brutal laws, labor, the laws in the labor, the courts that judges business owners, things like this. So wages here are very, very low. And who works for minimum wage? The poor, generally. Okay, because people that has high degrees, medicine, dentistry, things like this, doesn't work for companies, they work for themselves. So minimum wage doesn't affect a lot. Okay, we have other dynamics here. Let me give you another example. As I said, Brazilian government is populist, so he spends more than he earns, and this dynamic is being like this over the last 100 years. It's not from now. And this so old dynamic makes the inflation rates be high, always high in the history. So inflation affects primarily the poor people. Okay, because it affects foods. Another dynamics that impacts the poor people. Here we have high tax on the consuming in the food, in the supermarket. We have high tax in these basic products. This affects the poor. So the inequality here in Brazil is explained by the effort the government makes always to give more taxation poor, by the inflation, by the low jobs available, and many dynamics that affect the poor. So the poor here has a miserable life, okay, and the middle class too. But here middle class can barely have a car, have rent, things that in developed countries are easy for everybody. Here is like this: middle class can barely buy a car and a rent and food, and the poor can barely survive. And the life of a poor here in Brazil is miserable. So this makes the inequality. I hope you understand. If you like this video, tap the like button, subscribe to the channel to motivate me. See you.